They were shocking. So look, Dan, Mourinho gonna Mourinho, right? Right away, the first thing we can talk about is that it was what we expected. All right, we pretty much called this, and it's not that we're geniuses. It's that it's what Jose does.
We have eyeballs, and we've watched them.
Yeah, exactly. So despite Jose saying his dressing room was unhappy with the result, classic mind game BS, they came to take a point and try to win on the counter, and that's exactly what they did. I guess a shout out to @XG Philosophy, who said Tottenham accumulated 0.00 XG in the second half of today's match. Really went for it. You know, he did put Lo Celso on, but then put Ben Davies on. Is defensive from the beginning. You know, he'll say he had injuries and we're missing people. We all are. But this is just classic Jose getting stuck into it. So, Dan, I don't know if you want to touch on the 4-3-3 from a formation standpoint. If you want to talk about the personnel that was decided, I'll kind of let you take us on a little choose your own adventure. No pressure.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn to page 54, which is going to take me down the path of going through the way we set up and the shape here. You know, we had talked before recording around maybe, you know, does Frank go with a back three, back five situation and try to maybe give them a little bit more fight in the center, commit a few more forward. That really wasn't what happened, but in general, if the team is just going to sit back and let you come at them, wave and wave and wave, the 4-3-3 was perfectly fine because the players who have been some of the most creative for us all season in Ben Chilwell and Reece James had plenty of latitude to go forward and to attempt crosses and try to connect. The challenge then became that really there was no space in a 9-man, 10-man defense at times to get anything for. I mean, Harry Kane was so far back at times. I mean, he was like a defensive mid in, you know, kind of the heat map situation. And so outside of, you know, moving the ball quicker, which is, I think, where this side really struggled today, is that there were moments where we were getting the ball forward. There were moments where we were finding goodness, but the passing lanes closed super, super quick, and we just weren't very sharp on our passing. There were a lot of sideways balls that we were kind of kicking back and forth. So, like, what I will say is, yeah, it's great that we had, you know, 650 passes, 800 touches to their 588 and 438 respectively, but we didn't do that much more with it, yet we had more possession and more time on the ball, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we talked about in our preview. I mean, like, I was thinking back to our preview, and I actually re-listened to it earlier today. We were pretty dead on about a lot of stuff that happened here. I mean, obviously I got the formation wrong, but what remained to me was that width was everything. They threw such a compact defensive shape at us that on the rare occasion that we could push our fullbacks up enough to have some width, we did find joy, you know, but it was just a hard proposition because I think, as Frank noted, the minute you commit too many players forward is the minute that a misplaced pass gets you in a lot of trouble because they're like a coiled spring that's ready to release on the other side. And so, you know, if you listen to his post-match press conference, it was he seemed very happy with the fact that we didn't give away a stupid counterattack goal, but I think in equal parts he was looking at this saying we could have buried this thing. Like, you know, they weren't offering that much. You go a goal up, or maybe, you know, a goal up brings them out of their shell a little bit. You're able to hit them for another one. The game's over, right? So I understand the tricky proposition that everyone is in, and all of our players were in. But I think given the fact that it's almost December, Brandon, this is where the league typically, you start to understand where the tectonic plates are going to shift in a league, right? You know, maybe your Aston Villas start to, you know, kind of get back towards the middle of the table. Your Southamptons lose a little bit today against United. Like, you can start to see the shift. You just can't lose this game. You can't. And I think the team set out and did a very good job in just staying alive.
Well, I think that's what the lineup told me when we went out there, mainly with Kovacic, Mount, and Conte in the midfield. Kovacic is going to scrap. He's going to keep possession, but he's not known for slotting through balls or, over the top passes through, and definitely not for finishing. So I think the goal was to just not lose the battle, and that's what we got today. But on the flip side, we did create a lot of chances, and we're going to talk about strikers next, so I won't get into it. So I think that we definitely did enough to win. I feel like the starting 11, when I saw it, I was happy with it. You assume that Pulisic isn't 100% healthy, which we talked about in the preview. You assume Kai Havertz isn't 100% healthy, and it sounds like he had some pretty strong symptoms from COVID, which I didn't hear about, but the announcers were privy to those details, and they're sharing that with us today. But so now you kind of look at him in a different light as well, of just what condition he's in. So I think that we talked a lot about Tottenham being low on energy coming off their Thursday match, even though it was a bit of a cruise, and they were there not to lose as well. I mean, the amount that Harry Kane tracked back, he was a non-threat going forward just because of the selfless role, quote unquote, he plays for this team. He drops back even when the ball gets forward. He's not in or on the box. He took a free kick that was pretty far off, but overall, thankfully, he wasn't much of a factor. And so I think they looked a bit leggy. I think we looked tense, as if we didn't want to concede anything. And because of that, Dan, your point of the passing lanes closing quickly, we were just worried about not turning it over in dangerous positions and maybe going backwards another level or sideways away from pressure a little bit, because we didn't want to give up the ball in a stupid position. We didn't want to get beat. Our goal was to get out of there just not losing. And if we happen to score and we happen to take all 3 points, amazing. That definitely wasn't the strategy. And I think that's why a lot of fans were frustrated today. I think saw a lot of frustration at the end. Mourinho did exactly what he wanted to do. He knew, especially with the Liverpool result earlier, that all he had to do is draw and he'll stay atop the table. That's good for him. Like, he is literally on a week-to-week basis with this league now. We saw it when he's in charge of Chelsea. This is how he's going to do it for Tottenham. But, it wasn't inspiring, but at the same time, I don't feel like we took a step back. So, you kind of take some, you give some.
That's the whole point of this. That why we're putting this first, right, is to provide some perspective as to where we are. Chelsea, as was noted in the 3-word match review, we're 14 matches unbeaten, which, if you think back to the great runs that we had, beginning of last year, beginning of the Conte season, is up there with any of those, right? 14 is a lot. We haven't lost a competitive match since Spurs in the Cup, and even then, that's not our primary focus this year. So I think a lot of fans wrote that off, Dan. Losing to Liverpool in September when they had a kind of a full team, there's no shame in that for a relatively new squad. They haven't lost in the league since then. And if again, it's not where you want to be in the table necessarily right now, but if you would have said at the beginning of September, with everything that's going on, all the COVID nonsense, all the international break nonsense, everything, that we'd be third, 2 points off in entering into what is going to be a hellscape of a December, when everybody in the league is going to be leggy, everybody's going to be playing second choice players, everybody's going to be doing that kind of stuff, then I would feel really good about where we are in squad depth and thinking about how to maximize the opportunity moving forward.
Well, when you also consider, to the point you made, when we played Liverpool, we hadn't gotten Mendy in yet. We still did not have every one of our new signings available for that. Ziyech was still unavailable due to injury in the preseason. And so that's a thing to consider as well. Mendy was out for the Southampton game injured. That's another thing to consider too. That could have been a very winnable game for us with a different keeper between the sticks. So this side could have comfortably been top of the table right now. And that's with today's result staying the way that it was. And so, yeah, if you were making the statement of would you be comfortable with Chelsea being firmly in the top 3, top 4 if you want to kind of assign a win to United for the game they have in hand, a win for Manchester City ahead of Manchester City, 2 points off of Liverpool, in contention for everything. I think you would have taken that at the beginning of the season. And so I think it's about being a little calm and trying to pull back from the context of it, because I think it's easy to overreact with this, but also I'm going to say this, Tottenham are a better side this season under Mourinho than they were last season. And so that's something to kind of keep in mind too, is that, Reguilon has actually, I think, helped improve them a bit on their left-handed attack. Son has been playing exceptional, and Rodon actually came in and didn't have a bad game for kind of the deputized center back. So, I mean, there were, and Nabelli was really, really good. He was really good in the first half. And so there were good performances on the other side of the ball, and it can't just be insular. Like, what went wrong with Chelsea today? Because, Nick, to that point, like, Spurs also had some decent performances that were committed to the game plan.